I was having to work, should I say, illegal jobs for a while.
Oldest university graduate of 2024. How did you meet your wife?
I was matched to my wife by the founder of the movement. And then I didn't see her for about a year and a half, so I got fired on my sickbed.
The perception of the typical university student.
I remember the first day when the professors walked into the classroom, I went to stand up.
Is there any path that you regret taking?
You're always questioning who you are, aren't you?
Was it easy to set up a business as someone who wasn't Maltese?
Next minute I'm in court for 5 years, but then all hell broke loose.
What's next for you? I'm delighted to be joined by Bryan Corlett, the oldest university graduate of 2024 and a journalist who settled down in Malta after moving from New Zealand. It's great to meet you, Bryan. How are you doing today?
Thank you, great.
So, Bryan, I've heard a lot about you, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners will have known you, especially from your interview on the University of Malta website, focusing on your incredible achievement of graduating uni at 72. I'd love to know what course you were pursuing and why did you leap to start a uni course at this stage in your life?
I was doing the journalism course, just a diploma of journalism, so just over 2 years. I've been doing write-ups for Malta Rugby for a long time, and I wanted to understand how the media works a little bit more, maybe more for research and this kind of thing. So I jumped in. I was pushed by I have 4 daughters, by the way, so there's a lot of feminine power in my family. So my daughters got behind me and gave me the big shove, yeah. I can remember even I applied and then I sort of let it go, and my daughter followed up. She phoned the university and said, what's he meant to do? And they're like, I'm meant to be there today. And so, straight away I went there and into the introduction session and then carried on from there. But I felt a big push from my family, yeah.
Okay.
That was a key.
And you're originally from New Zealand, so as an Irish person who also came to Malta, I'm curious to know what pushed you to start a life here and to leave New Zealand.
Yeah, I left New Zealand when I just turned 20. I went to a Catholic high school, De La Salle College in New Zealand, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at university. Passed my exams to go to university and thought I need to take a bit of a time off, so I went into construction for a year, and then I got the travel bug and I headed to Australia. I lived in Australia for 3 years. I did a mining course there, so I was a hard rock miner for 3 years. Played some professional rugby while I was there as well. I went back home for a year, and then I headed to America, and I lived in America for 6 years. And that's where I met my wife in New York City.
Wow.
So that's a brief history.
And did you find it difficult to adjust to the Maltese lifestyle? Of course, New Zealand is so much bigger, and you've had the big rugby scene over there. So was it difficult to adjust, and did you regret leaving New Zealand?
No, I don't think even in life I've had many regrets. Looking back, I think, you sort of evolve from one thing to another and you just go with it. Mm-hmm. I think probably difficult when I first came to Malta. I came to Malta in 1982, so the political climate was pretty intense at that time. Even though I was married to a Maltese, I wasn't allowed to work in Malta, so I had to work on the oil rigs for about 5 years. And then things changed and I could work in Malta, and later I started a business, a health food shop in Slima, which I ran for about 34 years. I just sold it this past year, yeah. So while I was studying, I was running my business at the same time as well, yeah.
And of course, it was difficult for you to find work when you came here, but have you found it easier now that you've graduated to work in journalism?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm 100% into journalism. I'm still doing my rugby write-ups. Mm-hmm. I think probably the most difficult thing, I'd lived in New York for a couple of years and came to Malta and, used to looking up at, high buildings, of course, skyscrapers, and you come to Malta, everything was about 3 stories in those days, yeah. It was pretty intense coming here, really. Even the driving, was very intense. Luckily, New Zealand, we drive on the left, so Australia, you drive on the left, America on the right, so I had to adjust a little bit. But, it was okay, yeah, no problem. I sort of went with the flow.
And you've told us that you settled down here because you met your wife, who's Maltese. How did you meet your wife? And do you have any stories you'd like to share about her?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. That's a whole Another sideline, yeah. Actually, when I went to America, I was backpacking my way through America, and I was searching, find myself, find what's this life all about, and I had many questions I was throwing out to the universe, and I had sort of an understanding of where I wanted to go. I remember I used to make leather sandals, and I put an arrow on the sandal to know which direction I'm meant to be going, and I believed in empiricism, just throw yourself into every situation and see how you bounce back, and you'll become a better person through that. Mm-hmm. So I had that sort of philosophy of life. But I think, growing up Catholic, so I had an inner sort of spiritual hunger, I guess, to understand a little bit more about the universe and who created it, and so I had all these questions, and I was walking through the streets of New York one cold, snowy night, and a girl stopped me in the street and started talking to me, and I was in a bit of a strange sort of area. I thought it was a bit of a red light district, so I thought this girl, maybe she's a prostitute, and then the light changed, we're crossing the road, and then I said, I think she's after my money, so I reached back to make sure my wallet's still there, But by the time I got to the other side of the street, she's a Christian, she's a religious person. So anyway, she said, would you like to come in and talk for a while? And I said, no, I'm not into Christianity, sorry. And she said the very thing that caught me. She said, but the coffee is free. So I went in and I chatted with her, and she had a lot of answers to the questions that I had, and I went to some workshops, and I actually joined that movement at that time. And my wife had actually joined the same movement here in Malta. And at some point, about 3 years later, I was matched to my wife by the founder of the movement. His name was Sun Myung Moon. So I was about 3 years in the movement before I met my wife. We were engaged just in a matching, and then I didn't see her for about a year and a half. We just kept in contact through letters and phone calls. And then we were married in Madison Square Garden, 2,075 couples, all married together. So even my wife's parents were there. They were members of the organization as well. So, and then I think within 6 months I moved to Malta, So that's how we started our family life in Malta.
Wow, that is quite
Sorry,
a
I
story.
sort of went off on a tangent there. You
No,
probably
it's a
weren't
great
expecting
story.
that, but
very interesting.
It's a big part of who I am, I guess.
It's like you and your wife kind of had that invisible string connection throughout the years.
Yeah. The interesting thing is too, the person who matched us, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, he gave a speech about matching, and he said, when I match you, I look 7 generations behind you, and I try to see what's going on up there that I need to sort out, so that's the reason why I match you. And he said, maybe you don't understand, but when you see your children, you'll see that they'll be more balanced. And then when I researched my ancestry and I researched my wife's ancestry, my great-grandmother came from Cork in Ireland. Her great-grandmother came from Cork in Ireland. Wow. I say he knew something,
Yeah.
And we fight every day, because that's what the Irish do.
True. I can vouch for that as an Irish person. I'd like to talk to you a bit about the perception of the typical university student. Generally, they come straight from school, straight from their course, they go into university. But there is a bit of a trend of young people opting out of university now and exploring digital jobs. So what did you think about this perception? Was this something that you kept with you, or was it something that didn't bother you at all?
Yeah, I had no concept about what I was going to meet, Mm-hmm. I was probably a little bit shy myself, because I was stepping into an environment that I'd never been in. I felt like my fellow students all knew the environment already more than I, because they're coming out of high school and junior college and things like that. So they were into studying. I wasn't, so I just had to. I remember the first day when the professors walked into the classroom, I went to stand up. I thought, oh no, you don't do that anymore, because no one else was doing it, so I sat down quickly, not to embarrass myself,
That's such an Irish thing as well, I think, because I went to a Catholic Irish school and we always stood up for the teachers, and that's only 6 years ago. Very different in university. And what motivated you to choose journalism for your degree? Was it the...
We're surrounded by the media. We're
course.
receiving news, and especially social media now. It's all coming at us from different angles. And I wanted to know really what's the gist of the media. What's it all about? What is the structure of it all, and how do they do their research? How do they get their news, and is the news true or not? So all those things I was interested in. Yeah, I've always enjoyed writing as well. The fact that I'm writing for rugby. I just like writing short stories and things. Ideas come to mind, I write them, and sometimes they're a little bit crazy, but I sort of get it out of my soul, I guess you'd say. So I enjoy that.
And you've said that your daughters pushed you to take the course, which is lovely. Did you feel judged by anyone else in your life for making the decision to go to university, or did you feel supported completely?
Yeah, I felt supported all along the way, yeah. Even friends were saying go for it, so it wasn't a problem, yeah.
So you had absolutely no...
almost no preconceived ideas and concepts about going in. I just thought, let's just do it, I thought actually there'd probably be a lot more people like me in there,
Yeah.
I know next year I think there's a guy who's 80 will graduate, because some of them contacted me and said, next year I'll be the 80, I just went with the flow, yeah.
I'm sure you inspired some people to do that as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously people wouldn't be as confident as you were. I guess the go with the flow mindset that you had throughout your life must have really fueled that. But I'm curious as to what changed between this stage in your life and in the past when you had the opportunity to go to university before.
Yeah.
When you passed your university entrance exam, what was it now that pushed you to do that instead of then?
I think I was just immature, just didn't know where I was going in life, and you hang around with your mates and they're going one way, so you follow them. I was playing a lot of rugby, and then a couple of mates, we decided to go to Australia together, so 3 of us headed to Australia. We actually split up and didn't see each other again for 5 years or something, and I went working in the mines, got attracted by the money, I guess, as well. But along the way, you're always questioning who you are, aren't you? Yeah, just trying to figure out who you are, and you're maturing bit by bit, and sometimes you feel like an idiot, and other times you think you know everything that exists,
Yeah.
So you sort of fluctuate backwards and forwards in who you are, don't you? You do some stupid things along the way, and you hope they teach you a lesson, and yeah.
And I guess it could be said that you probably value the education more when you're at that point in your life when you've decided to go back, rather than kind of seeing it as the natural thing to do right after school, which is something that I think is very valuable as well.
Yeah.
But you were working in your business, your shop in Salima. What was it like balancing that with your family as well and the course that you were doing?
Yeah, luckily I had some good people backing me up, and that I'd employed as well. And I was still working half a week in the shop, and finding time to study as well. I think when you get older too, you got a little bit of wisdom from your life story. Yeah? So if I had to write a story or anything, I could quickly get the stuff together and write it. Just life teaches you a lot. So I think that life's wisdom helps in your studies. Yeah, that's what I found anyway.
And how did it feel then when you graduated?
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was a great feeling. You feel liberated. You don't have to go to classes every day anymore. I was doing part-time, of course, so I could manage it more. I wasn't full-time like the other students. I think there was 3 of us doing the diploma. The others were, I think one was in his 40s and one was in his 30s. So, we connected a little bit there and sort of helped each other through. So it was a good experience along the way.
And of course, you've talked about your go with the flow mindset, and I'm assuming that's what kind of carried you through the course itself as well.
Yeah.
But did you have any moments throughout it where your mindset was a little bit weaker, or you kind of had concerns about?
Well, we had one module called Methods of Inquiry, which is very difficult. I really struggled with that, Yeah, it was a difficult one. So I was challenged there. And I think also the technology sometimes. I wasn't up to date with a lot of the technology. I did a stupid thing just as I started the course. I bought a Mac computer and didn't realize that it was so different from the normal PC operating system. And I was fighting with my Mac most days as well, trying to figure out how it worked, yeah. I think it took about 6 months to realize I could scroll with the two fingers and, move the page, I was always using the arrows. So little things like that did disturb the mindset sometimes, yeah.
I know how that feels. I have the Mac too. It can be annoying.
Yeah.
And was there elements that excited you as well?
We took a trip to Brussels. I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, we had a 3-day trip to Brussels. And so we were just hanging out with the other students, had a bit more time with them, That was a great trip. And just getting out of Malta together with other students was great. And we had a chance to interact with a couple of the professors. They came on the trip. So, yeah, it was good. It was good. Enjoyed that.
And I know from my personal experience as well that there can be times where people are questioning the type of career, the type of courses like media, like journalism, if kind of there's a preconceived conception that they're not as valuable as maybe STEM degrees or medicine or things like that. Did this bother you at all, or did any external factors impact how you felt about the course you were doing?
No, I was quite happy with it. Probably the other courses, that would involve physics and maths, and I'm not that kind of person. I wouldn't get into that. Those are the people who are building the buildings and building the ships and the planes and things like that, So I didn't go into those sort of engineering. I didn't have that kind of mindset at all for that. I guess because going with the flow is a bit like media, really, because you never know where it's going to go. It flows from one thing to the next, whatever news is breaking, So it's really like the world situation is flowing all the time, yeah. So, we're engineering more structured, understanding how the structure of things work.
Yeah.
But media is unstructured, really, when you think of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And throughout your career in Malta, when you were at that crossroads when you came here where you couldn't work, is there any path that you regret taking, or do you ever think about a different route that you could have taken? Maybe if you had gone to a different country, you could have picked your career up in a different way. Is there anything that you regret about this? I know you said you don't have regrets, but when you think about it with your career specifically.
Probably I should have studied Maltese when I first came, yeah. I think that would have made a difference. But because I wasn't forced to speak Maltese so much, I remember working on the oil rigs, I was working with quite a number of Maltese on the rigs, and they'd always come to me and say this word. And I got a feeling, no, that's not the right word to say. Okay, then say this word. I know they're trying to teach me swear words, right? And I said, no, I won't say that either. And then they'd come to me and say, so you don't swear? And I said, well, I try not to. He said, maybe you don't swear, but you make everyone else swear. So it drew a line in the sand that I had to be careful what words I knew. And working with these people, that's what they were trying to teach me, yeah. And I could get by with English. My shop was in Slima, and pretty much everyone there speaks English. Maybe one person a day would speak Maltese, and you get around it somehow. Probably I would understand more the culture of Malta if I'd understood the language and listen to the street conversations and be a bit of a spy, really, because I'm a white guy listening, and understanding the language.
Yeah.
Maybe that was one regret. Yeah, but I could always pick it up.
And what was it like coming to Malta as an immigrant back then?
Yeah.
Were you treated differently, or?
I think in that time there wasn't a lot of foreigners here. There's a few English people, of course, were living here and had been living here a long time. Because the history of England and Malta was very close, and people were coming and going between Malta and England. I didn't feel like a fish out of water or anything like that. My wife's family was quite big. She got 5 older brothers, so, surrounded by that family. Was always very supportive. Her parents were very kind to us as well. I didn't worry too much. The driving was a bit crazy. Just to drive here took a while to get a bit of confidence. Just the way things are done, I guess, very political. I wasn't used to that, the fighting going on between 2 political parties. And so in New Zealand, the election day comes and goes. You wouldn't even notice that it happened, I seem to remember being on holiday in New Zealand once. It was election day, and I'm thinking, where are the crowds shouting and screaming and placards? And it wasn't happening, so just people get on with life. So here it's like a football game almost between 2 political parties, trying to find the ball.
And in terms of your business, was it easy to set up a business as someone who wasn't Maltese, or did you face any judgment for that?
No, luckily I had a business partner, Maltese, who was an accountant, so he knew structure of everything that a business should be. I got into the business, I got very sick actually. I was having to work, should I say, illegal jobs for a while, just to survive. And I was working in a plastic factory, and I breathed all this plastic fumes, and I started getting bronchial asthma. And every time I got a cold, it become asthma and bronchitis, and I ended up in hospital on oxygen, and I had to carry one of these inhalers around all the time and puffing. Luckily, I was still playing rugby, so I was still pretty fit. And I was puffing away on these inhalers, and you get headaches when you do them. And I remember one time I had such a high fever, the whites of my eyes, all the blood vessels popped. And so it was all red, so the fever was that high. At the time I was working in a company, and they thought I was just skiving and going off to do other things, and so I got fired on my sick bed basically, so I went in after I had to go in and work 3 more days or something, and they saw me with these red eyes, and they said, "Oh heck, what's wrong with you?" I said, "Told you I was sick." They said, "Okay, you can have your job back if you want it." I said, "I don't want it. Sorry, I'm moving." So I just left, and I was without work for about 6 months, and so I talking with my business partner, okay, let's open a health food shop. During those 6 months, I had to figure out, how to cure myself. And so I started reading a lot and studying about herbs and vitamins and all this and diet and what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat. And then I had a little bit of knowledge, and we opened the shop in 1990. So, a long time ago now. And, gradually went through some struggles there because they didn't know anything about vitamins. Vitamins were seen as medicine in Malta, so we were importing vitamins from America, and a very good brand. And next minute I'm in court for 5 years because they're saying I'm selling medicine without a license. So I was backwards and forwards into court trying to defend myself. And by the time the judgment came, we joined Europe, and no one knew what the heck was going on then. And they just said, "We'll go and regularize your situation," which no one knew anything how to do it anyway. And we did a short course, I think 3-month course with the government, and we were free to charge on, basically. So, there's some big struggles there, first 5 years of opening the business.
And did that ever go into the public where there was kind of a controversy, or people were...
Yeah, it came down to a TV program. There used to be a Friday night, I can't remember the name of it, Sharabank was it? I think it was the name of it. And they used to discuss all these things. Anyway, a Japanese guy came onto the island. He was carrying some medication for his friend, or a herbal product for his friend, and he got caught, and customs caught him, And so I had this big debate on television about this product, and everyone was going on, it shouldn't be allowed and that. And then someone held up one of my products in the TV show, and said, "What are you all talking about? It's already in the country." And they held it up. They zoomed in on my Nature Sunshine product, then all hell broke loose, That's when they came at me. So, it was an interesting time,
I can imagine. So, Bryan, you've had such an interesting career with your business and everything. What's next for you? Have you?
I should write a book, right?
You should.
Would you buy it?
I would, yeah.
It'd be an interesting book, isn't it?
Yeah.
I actually started it once. I wrote the first chapter, and then I sort of let it go. But and also maybe a bit of family history I think I should write as well. And people are saying I should write also the history of rugby in Malta, because I've been so involved. I've been involved with rugby since 1983, and I'm down there every Saturday doing the write-ups for club rugby. And so I know everyone that's come and gone through the rugby history, and a lot of people have passed on that were at the beginning point of rugby. They've passed on now, and so their story is gone. Yeah, so everyone's telling me you have to write the story. So big task. But anyway, I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
I think that would be a good move.
Yeah,
for
you have to bring. I'd probably have to get a team together to do that one. Yeah.
You'll need to get your daughters to push
Yeah,
you
there
again.
we go.
Would you be interested in delving into the news aspect of Malta, writing about the news, or are you more interested in the rugby side of things?
Yeah, I think news, you have to be really on the ball to be writing news, hard news. And I don't think I want to go there. I reckon it'd be a real stressful job, just chasing those stories. Interesting, of course, but be pretty stressful, I think, meeting deadlines. I don't think I'm that kind of character. I like to go with the flow. Remember?
Yeah, I do. This has been such an interesting conversation, and you have such an interesting life. I'm interested to know, and this is something that we have been asking all of our interviewees, what is success to you? How would you define success?
Happiness. Happiness, yeah. If you feel happy about yourself and you have, the environment you're in, I think that's what's in your soul, I don't think you need to chase money all the time. Chase a new car, new phone, all that stuff, it's just, you think you're going to find happiness when you've got it, but then you find, what's the next thing I have to chase to get the happiness back, I think it's just trying to find happiness in your soul, being comfortable in your own skin, and relationships you have with people, that they're genuine relationships. You don't try to be faking it until you make it, just being genuine. I think for me sounds simple, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And what about failure?
Failure, I think you learn from your failures, don't you? I think we've all made mistakes, and I think there's always something to learn. I think failure you tend to make when your emotions aren't right, when you're angry or maybe even too happy, you do something wrong in that moment, yeah. So a lot of life is about controlling who you are, your emotions, and not getting too wild, yeah. Don't drink too much beer either. I had a moment in my life. I used to work in a brewery years ago as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been there, done that,
Of course.
Of course, I grew up in the 70s, right? So everything was on in those days. There was all kinds of things going on, psychedelic things, So I won't go down that road.
And you've got such a good mindset. Was there any book, film, podcast, person that has inspired you to kind of figure out life, or inspired you to take these paths, something that you can recommend to the audience who might be going through something where they figure out their path?
I'm not so much into the self-help, kind of books and that kind of thing. I think I probably touched on them, but somehow they didn't resonate with me. One movie that inspired me was Robin Williams' What Dreams May Come. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was about the spiritual world, And a book that sort of inspired me was Bill Bryson, A Brief History of Everything. It was more based on science. So it was a science book, and the movie was more of a spiritual thing. So I thought the two, sort of woke me up to certain things that I didn't understand. So those are the two things that probably inspired me, yeah.
And spirituality is something that you've talked about. Is that something that guides you through?
Yeah. I'm not a Bible basher or anything like that. I think the Bible is an expression of truth. It's not the exact truth. We have a book that I adhere to. It's called A Divine Principle. It was a revelation from the founder of the movement that I still belong to. And it just explains certain things about Jesus' life that people didn't understand so much. Why man is separated from God, why is there a division? It can't be just an apple. It must have been something more than that, So this book sort of explains those things, and it talks about history, how history keeps on repeating itself over and over again until certain things are fulfilled, and then history can move on. So that book is very interesting too, called The Divine Principle.
That's very interesting. So you've started off in New Zealand, worked in the mines, and then you went back to college at 72. So spirituality is the key.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think spirituality is all about taking care of others, living for the sake of others. And I think that's where you grow your character as well. When you're more thinking about your friends or your family, what can I do for them? How can I help them? How can I help society? Then you're not thinking about yourself all the time, because easy to get selfish, because the old physical body demands, its own satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to break through that to reach out to people. And finding love, love with people, love in situations and the creation and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
They all mean something, don't they?
100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bryan. This was a very interesting conversation.
My pleasure.
It was great to have you on.